Moving along to our next question here in the Mailbag podcast. This question comes from Wink, asking, with so much buzz around Dylan, assuming he's talking about Dylan Raiola, Moga, Luke Moga, and MVB, Michael Van Buren out of St. Francis Academy in Baltimore, where does Oregon stand with Elijah Brown out of Mater Dei? Yeah, Elijah Brown is another really gifted quarterback out of Mater Dei here in the Southern California area. He's different. He's a very special quarterback, a very cerebral guy. I don't think that he will really blow you away with his athleticism, which is kind of funny to say, but he is still one of the best quarterbacks, one of the best players in Southern California, without a doubt. Now, the interesting thing with Elijah Brown is that Stanford is actually a school that I think we've heard some buzz about, some buzz around his name. I think a lot of people, when they look at Elijah Brown's recruitment, being a guy from Southern California, and with Lincoln Riley at USC, I don't want to bring him up too much, but especially with quarterbacks, you have Lincoln Riley, you're going to be able to enter any quarterback recruitment that you want because the guy just develops quarterbacks, sends them to the league, and usually sends them with a Heisman Trophy, like we're seeing with Caleb Williams right now. So the interesting thing with Elijah Brown is I'd be kind of curious to see where he falls in the priority list for USC, because the Trojans look like the front runners for Dylan Raiola right now. Dylan Raiola is going to be taking a spring visit to Oregon for the spring game, and I think the plan is for him to compete in the Elite 11 Eugene Regional the next day after the Oregon spring game. So I think Oregon definitely still has a chance with Elijah Brown. I don't think it's a guy that you count out for Oregon, although, the board maybe did shift a little bit when Will Stein got hired, because Kenny Dillingham, it's not always going to be, okay, Kenny Dillingham was recruiting this guy, so now Will Stein wants to recruit this guy too. I think I mentioned the other day, Will Hammond, the 2024 Texas Tech quarterback commit out of Texas, is a guy to keep an eye on, as far as maybe some under the radar guys that Oregon is considering here at the quarterback position in the 2024 recruiting class. So all those guys that you mentioned are definitely guys that you want to keep an eye on, right? Dylan Raiola, Luke Moga out of Phoenix, Michael Van Buren out of Baltimore. I think Michael Van Buren is probably, other than Dylan Raiola, I think he's Oregon's top quarterback target and probably one of the more realistic options, even though he is a cross-country guy out of the DMV area. And he's a guy that's been to Oregon a lot and been coming to Oregon for a long time. I think Penn State, Maryland, those are some schools that you also have to keep an eye on, with Maryland obviously being the in-state school for Michael Van Buren. But the DMV area is a talent hotbed. We know that there's a lot of really good players that come out of there. Nicholas Harbor, I was having a brain fart. Nicholas Harbor came out of Washington, D.C., and they're going to keep pumping out guys in that area. So I think that Michael Van Buren is definitely a name that probably sits at or near the top of Oregon's quarterback hot board, quarterback big board, wish list, whatever you want to call it. And you're going to keep taking your swings at Dylan Raiola, but it does kind of feel like he is USC's to lose. But you also have schools like Nebraska, Georgia also in the picture for Dylan Raiola. I think he just took a recent visit to Georgia and he's going to go back to Nebraska, and he's starting to get his official visits scheduled. So I think that Elijah Brown definitely shouldn't be getting lost in the mix here, especially if USC does take Dylan Raiola or ultimately land him. Then we got to see, where Oregon goes, because the thing that you have to keep in mind here with this class is that it's not as top heavy. I'd say it is top heavy. Excuse me. It is a top heavy class at quarterback because it doesn't have as much depth as the 2023 class does, right? You had Arch Manning, Malachi Nelson, Dante Moore, all of these elite guys at the quarterback position, Nico Iamaleava, so many talented guys at the quarterback position, which means that quarterback is going to be an even more important position. The Ducks got Austin Novosad, flipping him from Baylor in the 2024 class. But another guy that I think might be worth keeping an eye on is Damon Williams out of Basha High School in Chandler, Arizona. He's a super athletic quarterback, really gifted passer that I like in this class. He's committed to Ole Miss right now, but we know how much Oregon's prioritizing the state of Arizona and how important that pipeline is, the Desert Ducks pipeline. So that's kind of the my 2 cents on Elijah Brown out of Modern Day. I'm going to be at the Elite 11 in Los Angeles on Sunday, and it looks like Elijah Brown is supposed to be there, so maybe I can steal a couple minutes of his time and just kind of get in his ear and see what's happening in his recruitment and try to get you guys an update on that. So make sure to stay tuned. I'll be tweeting updates and whatnot at Torres Sports.